Welcome everyone to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday night, August the 5th, 2026. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Man Speak. So let's give a shout out to Count Basie for providing our theme music, to our own studio in Forest Films for our virtual studio, and Tom, if you haven't already, for the people out there, if you haven't hit that like button, go ahead and hit it. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded. And if you're not a subscriber, now's a good time to go ahead and subscribe. And if you're here watching the show live with us tonight, invite a friend, a family, a neighbor, a co-worker, a frenemy, um, or just someone you are interested in talking to for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday, so you guys have something interesting to talk about. With that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best. We just bring information and news stories, interesting news stories, to social media. What say you, sir?
all right, folks, let's get this party started. We have a jam-packed show tonight, a lot of very interesting stories. We've got a couple of condolences that we're going to acknowledge, but prior to that, we're going to do a few follow-up stories on a couple of topics that we've discussed. We talked a little bit about the Howard University drama that was going on last week. We have a little bit of a follow-up on that. One that we haven't talked about, the Sonia Massey, or really, rest in peace, the officer that was sentenced for her murder, had a new update on that. Of course, in the business space, there's been another lawsuit against social media companies, YouTube, Meta, etc., on the impact that they're having on younger people. And Jimmy, you asked, we have got a interesting conference that I've never heard of that focuses on the nerd crowd that came to Houston last month that we've got to talk about a little bit.
Tom, I hadn't heard of Mila till you showed me the story, man. But I'm happy they are existing, and I wish them luck.
All right,
We-
and a few more stories, including another recent unfortunate incident with a teen who was killed in the Austin area that we are going to dig into a little bit deeper. But before we go into our stories, let's take a moment to honor our ancestors and offer condolences to a few folks that we missed last week, but still relatively recent. One, you probably do not know his face, never knew his name, probably didn't even know the impact that he's had, but I guarantee you, you will know his work. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, this first gentleman, I've known his work for years and never knew it was a brother. Plas Johnson, who recently, well, actually died in mid-July at the age of 94. Renowned saxophonist and go-to was the tenor saxophone in the Pink Panther theme song, passed on July the 15th, 2026, and home in Grenada Hills in 94, born in Louisiana in 1931. He built a reputation as one of Hollywood's go-to session players, recording with legends like Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Marvin Gaye, and B.B. King. That's some pretty high cotton there.
it is.
The Pink Panther theme song was his signature work and is known internationally for Jimmy. I guess I should have known, but I never knew it was a brother who was the
I didn't
saxophone
either.
and thing. So amazing his brother did some superior work. Actually, that theme song that he highlighted went on to win 3 Grammy Awards, Jimmy, and one of the most recognized pieces of music. Probably bar none. Pink Panther was one of my favorite cartoons when I was growing up.
Yes, well recognized piece. No one knew who the musician was, but I didn't know. So until tonight. So this is why this is a learning show, Tom. This is why you have to watch every week because you never know what you're going to learn.
Absolutely. And then also, Dr. Sylvia Bug was an accomplished public broadcasting leader who served as the chief programming executive and general manager for PBS, Public Broadcasting System. Unexpectedly passed at 55. The cause of death has not been released, but this happened also in July. She was highly regarded for her commitment to telling everybody stories and her vast contribution to public media as a whole. She led the national content strategy for all non-children's programming, overseeing editorial teams across news, documentaries, history, science, and the arts. Um, didn't know her faith, but you did know her work, especially in the public broadcasting media. And Jimmy, if I think of all of the great content on PBS and public broadcasting over the years, obviously this is a sister who probably touched all of our lives, sharing stories, Jimmy, that we probably never would have seen otherwise. And at 55 years of age,
Way
definitely,
too young, Tom.
absolutely. So we definitely want to give our condolences and make sure that we acknowledge those that we have lost, Jimmy, another group of great giants. So let's see who we have on the um, chat line. We've got Tanya on the chat line. I want to thank you for joining us this evening, and I'm pretty sure that we'll have a couple of other folks who will be joining us as well. So for those of you who do jump on, tell us and give us comments on the stories that we're sharing tonight. Of course, we're going to have a good time and definitely want your feedback. And of course, this is your show. We're just the kind of the purveyors of getting the conversation started. So let's first start off with an update to the Howard University story, Jimmy, and a follow-up to the story that we launched last week. Of course, Howard came under pretty intense scrutiny for unenrolling 500 students due to non-payment issues by the school required deadline. Howard has now readmitted 200 of those 502 students.
Okay, that's a start.
Exactly. The university said it's continuing to review cases individually, and additional students may still be reinstated if their financial records show that something was done in error. Howard said the students were removed because, of course, their accounts did not satisfy enrollment requirements by the school-imposed July the 10th deadline, failure to complete an approved payment plan, their financial aid posted, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, interim president Wayne Frederick has been under a lot of fire. He has defended the university's actions, saying the students were notified repeatedly since March during different channels, and the university has assigned staff working with the affected families to review the disputed cases. Jimmy, Howard, interestingly enough, one of the premier HBCUs across the country had approximately 37,000 applications for this year's freshman class. Roughly
37,000?
37,000, about 2,200 first-year students remain enrolled this fall. So that's just a little bit over 5% of that number. Classes start on August the 17th. And of course, this is generated a lot of criticism and debate across alumni, students, and higher education advocates as they debate, what would have and could have, should have happened with these situations. And of course, which we talked about last week. So
Okay, Tom, you sound a little staticky. And okay, so I don't know how things were done at A&M, but I don't think I was out of school that much longer than you were out of school.
correct.
Um, and but back when I was in school, Tom, you had time to pay. You enrolled first. You picked your classes, and then they calculated how much you owed based on how many classes you picked, whether it was 12 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours, whatever it was, plus labs, dorm fees, meal plans. I mean, all that came. You got a bill after all that was tallied up, and you go to the bursar office and figure out some payment plan. But even then, you still had some time, like generally by midterm, to kind of pay up. I mean, you had time. You can go to school and before, but now it just seems like you have to pay up front before you even take a class. I'm not sure how they calculate all your fees in classes and labs and everything before day one, but evidently they do. But if I was one of those parents and got one of those letters, I would probably tell my child, "Don't worry about it. You know, you have until at least 6 weeks after school start before I have to write the check." But I would have been wrong.
Yes, you would have been, as a lot of parents were, Jimmy, because a lot of parents were anticipating that they were going to have a little bit more time, even though they received several messages in the mail. And Howard said, "No, we ain't playing that. We got a business to run. We got to pay bills too. So we need our money, and we need our money now." So, I mean, it's not everybody, because a lot of families are going through a lot of stress and drama. A lot of parents and students have went directly to DC to try to get this resolved. Obviously, some of them have been made whole. We hope more of them do that. But as we've talked about before on many of our shows, Kenny, a lot most of our HBCUs run a very tight budget. Most of them have housing issues. Most of them have a lot of financial issues for several reasons, including the fact that we know that a lot of them aren't getting the funding that that they should have been getting from the state and federal government. So, we'll keep an eye on this. I'm anticipating within the next 6
And Tom, just as a quick reminder, how much is the tuition at Howard each year?
tuition at Howard is, I believe, close to 60 something thousand dollars.
And that does not include room and board. That's just tuition.
That does.
And Tom, with that kind of price, that is, I mean, it's right up there with some of the Ivy League schools. I know Harvard's about 100,000 a year,
Oh wow.
and Princeton and Yale are right up there over 100,000. But Tom, at 60,000, you're not too far behind. But how many parents can really write that check and afford to cough up 60 plus thousand dollars every year for the child to go to school?
Well, the majority of that may not be coming out of the parents unless they make a lot of money. They get Pell Grants. They may get loans. They get, of course, private scholarships and things of that nature. So it's not as if the parents are having to pay for the entire amount. But obviously, given that, as we know, the net worth in our households being the bottom of every demographic in this country, most folks aren't just carrying that kind of cash around in their pocket.
Tom, all the more reason to be a little bit more forgiving and understanding, especially if a person has Pell Grant opportunities or student loans in place to help finance their education. Just a little bit more consideration. Not, hey, pay by this day, or send a check in, or else we're cutting you off. Seems a little ruthless to me, but hey, I'm not the school administrator trying to keep money flowing through the door to keep the school open.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
our next update, Tom?
Well, our next update, and matter of fact, it's actually a little bit over 60,000. I knew it was 60 something thousand. It's closer to
Ooh,
66,000. Closer to,
okay. So what
yeah.
did you just do, Tom?
Say what?
What did you just do? Can you sound clearer now?
I did absolutely nothing.
I don't know if you got closer or it seemed like, yeah, just whatever you just did just here like 20 seconds ago, the static cleared up. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right,
You were
let's
talking
go
about
ahead
the
and go.
tuition.
Let's go ahead and go to our next story, Jimmy. This is a story, of course, that we have been covering for a couple of years, but there's been a recent update with the issue with, of course, Sonia Massey, which we've covered for the last couple of years. The Illinois Prisoner Review Board voted unanimously 3-0 to deny an early medical release application for Sean Grayson, the former Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy serving a 20-year sentence for the second-degree murder of Sonia Massey. Grayson sought compassionate release, what they call compassionate release due to advanced stage 4 colon cancer. Grayson filed the application. Sorry about that, folks. Filed the application in roughly 6 months after his 20-year sentence, claiming in the paperwork Massey had attacked him with a pot of boiling water. Of course, we all saw the video. Prosecutors and the Massey family, of course, vehemently protested the release. Massey, then 36 years old in 2024, called 911 regarding a potential prowler at her home. Body camera footage clearly showed Deputy Grayson shooting Massey in the face after she moved a pot of water off of the stove, saying, "I basically rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Grayson was found guilty of second-degree murder and handed a maximum 20-year prison sentence in January of this year, Jimmy. So,
Well, I mean, not only did he shoot her, but he advertised, told her he was going to shoot her. So you don't tell someone I'll shoot you in the head and then shoot him in the head and then claim self defense. And whatever boiling water that, I don't know if it was directed at him, but he said some of it hit his shoe. I'm sorry. And there is a famous case called Graham versus United States. The Supreme Court kind of determined that whatever force you use towards a person by law enforcement has to be proportionate to what's being directed at you. So a little water on your shoe or boot does not justify you shooting someone in the head. And then on top of that, Tom, here's the worst part of it. You shoot a person, then you sit there and watch them die and don't do anything to render any kind of medical care to that person. And even the other officer there who wanted to go get the medical kit from the car was told, "Don't worry, don't. It's too late now. She's probably going to die." Well, whether she was going to die or not, still make the attempt. And here's the worst part, Tom. I've studied not only this one, but I was also just watched the trial of the officer in Fort Worth that shot the aunt who was raising her nephew um, because he was in her backyard with a flashlight. Didn't announce himself, but she grabbed the gun to defend herself against what she thought was a burglar, and he shot her and killed her. But Tom, what I notice is in these cases, the lack of remorse for these officers have for people. They feel nothing. I mean, I can understand. I mean, look, I'm a Marine. I went through a special psych profile that they determined that I wouldn't be one of those who would suffer from PTSD. That if I had to kill someone on the battlefield, I'd be able to sleep at night. I'd be able to eat. I'd be able to get on with my life. Because to me, it would just be a job. I wouldn't take it personally. And for people who take things like that personally, shouldn't be given a gun time, shouldn't be given those kind of assignments and those kind of responsibility. So I truly understand the mental makeup of people who are borderline psychos. And some of these officers are borderline psychos because they feel no remorse over the people that they kill or injure. Just nothing. They feel okay with it. And you can't be a decent person, and I'm kind of telling on myself because I don't consider myself a decent person. So I have to work hard at being a decent person. I have to willfully will myself to be a decent person on a daily basis because I could easily slip to be a monster if I was in another line of work. But for these people who have a gun, a badge, taser, pepper spray, a baton sometimes, who are given arresting authority, detention authority, investigative authority, and they want people to look up to them and want people to follow their commands, even though you treat them like a dog. Um, some of these people are just so unhinged, Tom. They shouldn't have a badge. They should never ever be given a badge. And I don't know who's doing the psyche valve for a lot of these officers, but it seems like far too many of them today, and there seem to be more and more of them, are just unhinged.
I would agree, Jimmy, and I think unfortunately, I mean, it's ultimately, up to the sheriff, in a lot of cases that are hiring these folks, and quite frankly, they're just good that they're just happy to have the bodies in there, Jimmy. The only thing that these folks should have is maybe a flashlight, if that, because they might hit somebody up on the head and try to beat them to death with a flashlight.
Well,
Simple.
Tommy, the biggest problem I see is okay. I mean, we know the leadership, especially in some of these small towns and small counties, can be bad. But you have elected officials, you have mayors and city councils, city managers, who the chief of police works for, and so you have people there that can reel these departments in. You have county judges, the county judge, and the commissioner's court who can reel a sheriff in for the county. And none of these elected officials seem to think it's their job to rein these people in. They just operate as if, okay, law enforcement is just a separate agency, and I just let them operate and do what they want and defend them. And your responsibility is to the people who elected you to keep them safe. And if your officers are vilifying the people, then you have to do something about it. Tommy, all these people from the top down have their hands bloody by what happens, especially when you're not doing enough to protect the people.
I would agree, Jimmy, but as we see not just locally, but at the state level and the federal level, as we have seen more recently, the only thing that unfortunately some of these elected officials, so-called, are responsible to are themselves and their pocketbook.
Okay. Well, I'm glad they turned that request down. And actually, the case in Fort Worth, the officer there who shot the aunt filed a similar appeal, Tom. One they I mean, he's serving 10 to 12 years for manslaughter, and he applied for a medical pardon, claiming that he's sick, that he suffers mentally from PTSD, even though he showed no remorse at the trial. When asked if he could turn back time, Tom, and do it all over again, would he do it? He said yes. A truly remorseful person would say, "No, I think I may have acted too quickly. I would have done this, done that, then hopefully I'll get a different outcome." But no, he said I would have done the same thing. You know what? For a person like that, man, it's best that you stay where you are in jail. Hopefully for the whole 12 years.
I mean, this is the facts, in my opinion. The reason that so many folks are, they feel emboldened enough to take people's lives so wantonly is because they're really very few to any responsibility or accountability. They have no fear of
No
what's going.
accountability, Tom.
They
Hardly any.
have no fear of what's going to happen to them. And in my opinion, within certain communities, they're only afraid of two things: that is money and bullets. Money and bullets. Otherwise, losing their lives or losing their money. And until you hit them in the pocketbook, or excuse my language, hit them in the ass, nothing's going to change. And in
But
this,
Tom is they don't pay these settlements. When the city or
I
the
know,
county or the state write that big check because of something that they've done, some stupid thing that they've done, it doesn't come out of their paycheck. They don't have to pay it. I mean, that's written off the taxpayers who you victimizing
and
pay
that's my
that money.
that is my point. Until they feel it in their
Right.
pocket. Otherwise, you eliminate their pension. You hold them financially responsible for what's going on. You put them in jail. Then you'll see
I
some
agree.
change. But until then, you're not going to see any change unless it affects them directly and or you put them under the ground. That's unfortunately the only thing I say. And in this case, it is what it is. Either you're putting them in jail or you are eliminating their retirement and or their pension. You're not going to get their attention otherwise.
It is very difficult time. I mean, the courts created this system. I mean, qualified immunity came out of 1871 civil rights legislation that was really written to protect black folks, freed slaves from the KKK. But the courts squeezed out qualified immunity from that law. They've also squeezed out, Tom, um, officer safety standards, the prevailing view from officer perspective standards. I mean, they've carved out. I mean, there's no legislation, no legislator, no Congress, no president, no governor ever signed any of these things in the law. The courts have extracted all these things out, and every one of them benefit officers to such an extreme that they're out of control now. So the courts can't put the genie back in the bottle. The legislators and the elected officials can't put the genie back in the bottle. Some of these officers and some of these agencies are just out of control. And Tom, here's the thing that I've noticed from studying the kind of people that get victimized. One, black people get victimized in the worst way, and because black people don't file complaints. There are some black people who want to go to a polling booth if there's a law enforcement standing by the door because they're so afraid of officers. Definitely not going to go into a police station full of officers to file a complaint. Two, the people who are afraid that if they file a complaint, they're going to be targeted.
Targeted.
So
Exactly.
they don't file a complaint. Um,
Exactly.
and then the elderly and the homeless get abused also. And then the next group are poor white people who probably, and just because they're large in
Or
number, get
just a poor, just a poor period.
well, poor people, period, Tom. But just by if you're going to segment this into groups, poor white people out of that poor group probably are the largest people,
Of
number
course.
of group people who get,
Well, they're
but
50%
black people
of
get
black.
brutalized the worst.
Of
So if you look
course.
at severity, it's black people. If you look at the numbers who get it the most, it's poor white people. But Tom, educated people with some money, even if you're not rich, but you have enough money to go hire a lawyer and file a lawsuit against these people. Those people generally who know their rights and who know some of their rights, generally officers don't fool with them too much. Every now and then it happens, but for the most part, they're counting on you not filing the complaint. Even if you file a complaint, no one's going to follow up on it. No one watches the body cam, even though you've written a use of force report. and they still don't go back and watch the body cam. They make every excuse to have plausible deniability, so they can say, "Well, I didn't realize. I read the report." Tom, you know how much sense that makes? If I was a bank robber and I got caught, but I get to write the incident report that I'm going to get judged by, yeah, I'd make it. I'd write that up in such a way that it would be okay for me to go in the bank and ask for money, as long as nobody was hurt, as long as I didn't step on anybody's toes. I didn't take your money. The money is insured. As long as I didn't take more than $100,000 out of your account, it should be okay. How much sense does that make that the person who's victimizing you get to go write the report that explains what happened, and people do not go back and look at the body cam and verify whether that report is accurate or not, and all they do is base their view on what happened by the report, as if officers don't have an incentive to lie. And then when you get them in court or depose them, and you compare what they've written down versus what the body cam shows and how different it is, that's the only time that it gets exposed. But Tom, that is so few people are going to get to that point, because you got to get past qualified immunity before you can get permission to sue them, and that's an uphill battle. And if you
Yeah.
get past that, they'll appeal it here in Texas. We're in the Fifth Circuit. They will appeal it to the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit is one of the most pro-friendly cop circuits there is in the United States. New York, California, the Ninth Circuit is probably the worst for officers, but the Fifth Circuit is probably one of the better ones for officers. So you got to get past the lawsuit, the challenge, the motion um, to passes over or not validate the claim on qualified immunity grounds. And if you win there, then they'll appeal it to the Fifth Circuit, which is an uphill battle to get past the Fifth Circuit. And you get past all of that, then you have the right to go to court and actually sue them. And in the meantime, you're stacking up legal fees like there's no tomorrow going through all of this. And even if you hire a lawyer on contingency, you have to have a strong, good case, and there's just not enough civil rights lawyers to take up all the cases. So this is an uphill battle, Tom. And then even then, they may drag this out for years, and then come offer you a few $100,000 and make it go away. And all you know is that I can get money today, or I can wait another couple of years and fight this out. I may get more money tomorrow, but I may not.
Well,
The,
the bottom line, Jimmy, is that this is the reason that we fight, and we've had this conversation several times. Qualified immunity. Without that, there really is very little accountability for law enforcement. Don't get us wrong. Neither of us are pro law enforcement, but we are anti violent criminal behavior. And when you cannot tell the difference between the person in the badge and then the person actually who is in a criminal organization, and sometimes the two get mixed up, that's where the problem comes. Because the reality of it
well,
is,
sometimes, Tom, they do get mixed up, but sometimes they're the same, or at least they're doing the same.
what?
So a bad agency in organized crime, there's no difference for the most part. Um, and especially when you create an environment, Tom, for bad things to happen. And
And
even when you say, okay, well, there's some good cops out there,
right.
but when good cops watch bad things happen and you have a duty to intervene and you don't, well, if I rob a bank and you stand by and you know that I'm robbing the bank and you do nothing, don't call 911, don't turn me in, or report it, well, you can get charged with aiding and abetting a criminal activity. And so this is what these officers do sometimes. They don't speak up when they see bad things happening. No one goes to another officer and say, "Hey, man, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have roughed this person up while they're in handcuffs. You shouldn't do these things. You dishonor the badge when you do that." They all keep their mouths shut, Tom, in the name of the blue.
Agree.
So
Agree.
if that's the case, then there are no good cops in that agency, as far as I'm concerned. You're
Well,
just a bad agency, and you're no different than damn crooks out there.
and there's a part, and that is just unfortunately an endemic part of certain law enforcement cultures, not all of them. But it starts at the top down. And sometimes when you have leaders who try to change the behavior, Jimmy, they're driven out because when you have so many years of criminal behavior within an organization, Jimmy, it's very difficult to root out. And so when we were having a lot of these left versus right leaning conversations, And of course, even in the last two generations of elections that we've had, in terms of having the conversation on qualified immunity, in terms of defunding the police, we don't want to defund law enforcement. What we want to do is make sure that our law enforcement agents are serving and protecting, not just policing our communities.
Well, you know, Tom, the worst part of qualified immunity is a two-part. Not only does the person have to violate your constitutional rights, and the courts may find that you did violate them. You beat them up while they were handcuffed. You slammed them against the wall. You did all kind of bad things to them. You shot and killed them, which is the worst of a civil rights violation. But then on top of that, the way that you did it had to have been done before with a case being with a case or a court have ruled on it. So there has to be existing case law that says that what you did was wrong. And if you do violate someone in a way that hadn't quite come to the courts yet for them to rule on, then your qualified immunity stands, even though the courts may agree that what you did was egregious, was heinous, and you shouldn't have done it. But because you've done this in a way that hadn't quite been done before and hadn't been brought a case to the courts, and the courts haven't ruled on it, then qualified immunity stands. And I mean, once again, no governor signed that in the law, no president signed that in the law. This is the courts who have squeezed this out of existing law to give these rights to police officers. And now we wonder why some of them are unhinged out of control because the courts gave them so much damn power over us that they can get away with it. It's hard to convict a cop. It's
It
hard
is.
to sue a cop.
It
It's
is.
hard to hold them accountable. And you're like, Tom, if we were bank robbers, what sense would it make for us to wear a body cam and have it on recording what we're doing as we go into the bank and rob it? Well, we would only be that bold to do that if we know that
And we
nobody's going
know
to
what?
watch the body cam.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. Well, let's do this, Jimmy, because we have a couple of other stories that we've got to
Okay.
get to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I told you not to go long, and I'm going long.
There you go. So let's go ahead and turn the tune on this. We've got a lot of stories. I think this is one that maybe kind of balances the narrative out. Recently in Houston, Texas, 45,000 people descended in the city last month for the largest black-owned gaming and anime in the United States. Founded in 2018 by a group of YouTubers, Dreamcom started in Waco, Texas, before
Waco,
Alabama.
Texas, Tom, with 800 people, 2018.
Exactly. And then it went from there to Austin and eventually in 2025. And
It moved to
this year's
Houston.
absolutely. This year's convention drew over 45,000 attendees. Dreamcom delivered $20 million in economic impact to the
20
community.
million times is what those people spent over the weekend at restaurants, at hotel, other things while they were there in town. A nice little chunk of change to come into your local economy, to the Houston economy, which I
Right.
know their economy is multiple billions of dollars, hundreds of billions. But another extra 20 million for a weekend activity doesn't hurt.
That's true. That's true. Now, DreamCon was founded by an organization called Real Dreamers of Change the World, a Texas-based collective of online video creators. The original goal was to create a YouTube channel to build a large enough audience to eventually create their own manga and anime. The channel registered in 2012, took off in popularity, amassing, Jimmy, check this out, 1.85 billion views and 7.3 million subscribers built around comedy sketches about anime, sports, gaming, etc. But in spite of their success, Jimmy, the organization attempted to attend anime and conference conventions as guests to meet and interact with their own fans, but they were often ignored or turned away by these
They were
mainstream.
denied, Tom.
Exactly. But the organizers basically saying they didn't fit in with the convention's vibe. This issue of fitting in plagued what they call these nerds who happen to look like us, Jimmy, because there were very few visual representations of them in science fiction, anime, and comics. Black fans like us often feel alienated from traditional large pop culture conferences. So they decided it was their time to build their own. And of course, that debuted in 2008, Jimmy, starting with just 800, as you mentioned, attendees in Waco. And it has blown up since then with over 45. Jimmy, can you imagine in that short of a period of time going from 800 to 45? thousands.
Right, and they outgrew Waco, they outgrew Austin, and had to move to Houston. But here's the thing that stands out to me, Tom, is why I'm so proud of these kids who've done this, because it reminds me of the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood area of outside of Tulsa, back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, when people would not do for black people there. They decided to come together and do their own thing. And anytime that happens in today's society, because we get tired of hearing the claim of racism that you turn me away. Okay, fine. You know, you don't want us at your conventions. Fine, we'll go start our own. And now their convention rivals some of the big ones.
Yeah,
They are one of the big ones.
yeah,
So I'm very and they did this in a very short period of
yeah,
time, which goes to show just how many of our kids who are nerds, their parents taking them to because a lot of these kids coming from around the country to attend. And I'm glad to see that they're getting support. Now, here's the other thing, Tom, is that DreamCom needs our support, Tom. If you live in the Houston area, pick up the phone, call the tourism board there, and encourage them to keep that convention there. Because if
because
Houston
they're
doesn't
the
want it,
competition.
bring
Yeah.
it to Dallas.
Yeah, the reality of
They're-
it is, I mean, you're right because I mean there is a very good likelihood that they may get incentives from cities like Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago that may,
Other big cities are vying for.
of
Wouldn't
course,
mind having them there. Wouldn't mind paying to help to bring them there. Who want the money that they're going to draw? So and if Dallas is not in the hunt, Dallas should be putting their bid in for their local economies there. So, but if you're in Houston, if you want to see these events, stay in Houston. You guys definitely have the space and the infrastructure, the hotels, the restaurants, everything else. Call up your tourism board and tell them to put some kind of incentive package together, Tom, to help keep these people there.
and the reality of it is, Jimmy. I mean, you and I both know this. We've been around for long enough to know this. I mean, there are a handful, probably less than we can count on five fingers, major representations that look like our community on the big or small screen TV when it comes to superheroes. I mean, obviously, the most successful commercially was the Black Panther. Of course, there was Blade. Probably that's probably been well over a generation ago that you had Blade. But you find
I
Jimmy,
like Blade.
yeah. Now Blade, the trilogy Blade, the Blade trilogy was very good, Jimmy. But we have so many stories that are out there, but will not get green lighted onto the big screen and or to the small screen. We had this conversation a long time ago. We know who the basis was behind the Lone Ranger when we were little kids.
Right. That'd be a Marshall Bass,
Exactly.
who was a brother. That's who they built the story around because he always got his man, Tom. Um, and the way that it ended for him was not very nice. So if you get a chance, go out and study the history on Marshall Bass, who was Marshal over the territories before some of them
In the
became state.
South, in the South, not in Kansas.
Yes, well respected, Tom. Well, we're feared by criminals because, like I said, when that judge signed the arrest warrant to go get this person, he always came back with his person, Tom, either dead or alive. It was your choice. So, so yes, and
Even
even Tom, to show how much integrity he had, when his brother got in trouble, and the circuit judge signed the warrant for his brother's arrest, he went and brought in his own brother.
yeah, Jimmy. I mean, I guess like they said on the Boondocks. We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
That was what was the guy in jail? What was his
Yeah,
name?
yeah, I forgot his name. It's like we can do this the easy
He's
way.
like, yeah, we could do this the easy way. We could do it the hard way.
But congratulations is really what we like to say. Outstanding job. Hopefully it will. We know it will continue to grow. But do
Oh yeah,
expect.
they think they have too much mass on them now. Time to quit. And like I said, they have options outside of Houston. And if Houston doesn't want them, like I said, there are
Oh,
several
Houston
other
wants
major cities that are already bidding to bring their convention to their city.
agreed, agreed. And so, I mean, for our, children's generation and the next children's generation, we have so many stories that are blocked from being told. They're not that they don't exist, they're being blocked. I mean, folks, look up the truth behind even the character Betty Boop and who was the original person behind Betty Boop. So there are so many stories, Jimmy, but we have to build and control our own institutions, put our own content out there. I think that's the beautiful thing about what we have with social media. But we have to build platforms and actually own and control our own content, our own institutions, whether we're talking about the visuals, whether we're talking about the economic with banking institutions. If we're going to have any liberation and freedom in this country, that's the only way that it's going to happen.
Well, Tom, we can cry river, we can cry sea, and all that crying is not going to do any good. When you decide to stand up for yourself and do it yourself, that's when it's going to start counting. So, like Tom just said, we have to control certain media. When we can't tell our stories on other people's platform, create your own. Tom, I don't know if any studios. I mean, we're just now starting to make movies and shows, which is good. I applaud those people who do that. But in the area of gaming and these animations, we have to become heavier players there because right now we're consumers. We don't create any of the content, but we have a lot of people out there, Tom, who are very talented, who make their own little private comic books, who have their characters and storylines that never ever make it big. And there should be an outlet for some of those creative types also to take some of those comic books and turn them into series
Which
or
which
turn them into short
means
films.
which means, Jimmy, that we actually have to also build the distribution as well, because that's usually where
That
we
is
get
true.
out. That is where we get locked out, is the distribution.
True.
Which
That is true.
what does that look like? Getting from content to your television, getting from content to the movie screen. That's where we get locked out.
Well, Tom, I mean, at some point, some of our really wealthy people, or some of our very people who have a little wealth of risk, may have to come together to get a streaming channel and create it just for black content. I know we got BET, but BET is not
Sold
black
out a
owned
long time ago.
anymore.
Exactly.
Sony owns that.
It's Sony now. I thought it was Viacom a while ago.
Oh, that's right. Viacom ended up buying it from Sony. So you're absolutely right. And I don't know if they even develop any black content anymore, other than run the reruns.
Yeah, the last time I saw it, not so much.
So yeah. So if there's some station owners out there who have a little wealth, to come up with your own streaming channel for black content and give opportunities to those up and coming who want to display their art. Yeah, we need to make that happen, Tom.
Gotcha. Let's go ahead and go to our next story, something a little bit more local. We were talking about Austin a couple of minutes ago. We've had another fatal police shooting in Austin. In the Austin Police Department is under pretty intense scrutiny right now as the investigators determined that a 17-year-old boy who was shot and killed was carrying a plastic water bottle in his waistband. The police somehow thought it was a gun, and the incident occurred in Northeast Austin during the early morning of July the 24th. The officers responded early in the morning to a 911 call reporting a teenager who allegedly was displaying a handgun near a park. The teen reportedly matched the description provided by the caller. Of course, they always do. We all look alike, right? Body camera video shows the officers ordering him to raise his hands and stop searching towards his waistband. Seconds later, the teen lifted his shirt, reached toward an object in his waistband, believing it was a firearm. The officers fired multiple rounds into the young man, fatally wounding him, Jimmy. And we have another young man who has been lost unarmed under a messed up situation.
Let me add to the story a little bit, Tom, and some of the details came out. Now he's in the park. He calls 911. He's the 911 caller, and reports that he's seen someone in the park with a gun. I'm not sure how they took his description and said he fit the description of the person when you're the 911 caller. On top of that, Tom, when you raising your shirt up to show that, hey, I don't have anything here. You got to be very careful with these cops who will shoot first and ask questions later. But Tom's they should have had a little bit better training in their responses. Just because you can pull a trigger doesn't mean you should pull a trigger. And if the person is pulling up their shirt, let them pull the shirt up. You don't know what's in their pants. You got flashlights on them. You can't tell the difference between a water bottle and a gun. And on top of that, to execute that young man, like three officers, not one, all three, firing their weapon at him to take him down. So even if it was a gun, does it really take three people? He hadn't pointed the gun at you. He hadn't pulled the gun out. He hadn't even grabbed the gun. So if he's just pulling his shirt up to show that what's in his his waistband, unless that gun comes out and he points it at you, then what are you shooting for? Because you
Well,
think there's a gun there.
but
And on
Jimmy,
top of that, Tom, and here's the problem I have. Another thing, you'll notice that never ever, hardly ever, do police investigate themselves and find anything wrong. It's not until videos go public, go viral, that attention is brought to it, that other people may look at that and say, "Hey, that don't seem right," because the initial report from the chief of police who came out, she came out that next day, and she claimed this was suicide by officer, that he made the 911 call and put them in position to shoot him, to kill him, because he wanted to commit suicide. So now they're questioning his family about did he have any mental disorders. You just lost your child, and the police are questioning you about whether he had any mental disorders. How disconnected are these people down here in Austin, Tom? But and then once again, they're put on administrative leave for 2 months with pay while they look into this, and then your conclusion is that you're supposed to be the best people in the world at investigating crime. That's what we pay you for. But like I said, when it comes to your own, you hardly ever find anything wrong. And then if you do write a settlement check because someone else determined that you were wrong, at the end of that, it always comes with a NDA or some kind of agreement where you don't admit fault. Well, if you don't admit fault to what you're doing, Tom, how can you ever fix it? There's no
they're
accountability
not
with these
concerned about
agencies.
fixing. Well, they're not concerned about fixing it, Jimmy. And this is what we discussed earlier. There are no really consequences when folks who are supposed to be protecting the public are actually policing the public. And this is just another case in point again where you have another young man who became shooting practice for officers. I mean, the reality of it is, if you feel that you are at somehow inherently at threat, you shoot to wound, not shoot to execute or to kill. But it seems that unfortunately, when it comes to our children, that they're always target practice.
Well, I don't think officers are ever taught to shoot the wound, Tom, but we certainly weren't taught that in the military. So if I was to pull that trigger on you, I'm trying to take you down, and I think that's where they are. I think they sometimes become over anxious. They know how much they can get away with, and they push it all the way to the edge of that line. And sometimes they step across it. But like I said, just because you can shoot someone, because you, and that's the other thing, Tom, that the courts have also carved out this protection for officers, where if they have a good faith belief that you have. So this is what this case revolves around: a good faith belief that he had a weapon and that your life was in danger. That's all it takes now for you to shoot and kill somebody. A good faith belief that they had a weapon, that your life was in danger. But why is your life any more important than anybody else's life? I can't shoot you, Tom, because you had a water bottle in your waistband, and I have a good faith belief that my life was in danger by you raising your shirt up. That wouldn't fly. I'd be sitting up under a jail with a life sentence if I tried to pull that off. But officers get away with that. Once again, another carve out by the courts. So the courts are not even in your favor. The elected officials are not in your favor. And then we wonder why these loonies out here, I call loons, from the DSA, think they're Democrat Socialists of America, that wing of the Democrat Party, come out with this, defund ICE, defund the police, get rid of prisons, some of the most looniest stuff out there, but it's gaining traction because of stuff like this. People get tired of hearing these reports. And I know police do their best to try to keep these stories out of the headline news, suppress the videos, do everything they can to cover it up. But the reality is that we're too connected, Tom, to keep these stories suppressed. Eventually, the truth is going to come out more and more. And as people find out the truth about what's going on with these agencies, everybody's starting to wonder, like, what are you doing to clean it up? And the answer is nothing.
Exactly, Jimmy. And unfortunately, I don't think that anything is going to truly happen until there are more high profile cases where you have young people, boys and girls, who look like the shooters who are being murdered that become high profile cases. Not until that starts happening will anything change, in my opinion. It's
Well,
not
Tom,
even,
unfortunately, other people may get beat up, may get abused, but very seldom are they shot and killed.
I understand that.
So,
That's the point.
so, so
Until,
when
until
the
the
abuse on our side is on the extreme. Um, They may have numbers on the other side, but we have severity on our side.
That's the point. And until most of those who end up going 6 feet under look like the shooters, Jimmy, nothing will change.
That time when you start holding your elected officials accountable, make it an election issue. So this is why, Tom, I don't mind the loonies out there who are calling for defunding the police, defunding the prison, defunding ICE, defunding all law enforcement. You know what? Let those people thrive and grow and continue to put pressure and gain traction, and maybe that would get somebody's attention that we need to take this issue serious and start doing something about it. That a lot of this stems around law enforcement, and none of us are against good law enforcement. We all want good law
Agree.
enforcement. What we're against is bad policing. And I mean, because you won't clean up the bad policing in support of the good policing, you allow these things to go on, and then you give cover to those who call for defunding the police. Well, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. How about you meet in the middle and let's just work to get rid of the bad policing?
Well, Jimmy, I, I don't know if there's such a thing as karma, but eventually, as someone who I admire a great deal said a long time ago, the chickens are eventually going to come home to roost.
They're gonna come home the roost, Tom. Which cost him a lot to make that statement, but it's definitely true, Tom. So,
Let's go
and
ahead and
we
move on.
definitely
Let's go ahead and go
okay.
to the
Go. What's our
next
next
story.
story?
Uh, we've got another story, Jimmy, that interestingly enough we covered a while back, but well, no, actually, I think we did cover this in what is now considered to be a very landmark case, Jimmy, uh, in Georgia. Colin Gray, the father of Colt Gray, who was recently sentenced to life in prison without parole, has now been sentenced to 15 years himself for his role in the 2024 mass shooting at Appalachian High School in the state of Georgia, Jimmy. This is a very interesting story. The son, Colin Gray, that's not the son, that's the father,
That's the
just
father.
received a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole after pleading guilty to 55, yes, not five, but 55 criminal charges, including the murders of two students and two teachers as well. The younger Gray, Colt, was convicted of second degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, cruelty to children, reckless conduct, and other items. Prosecutors sought an 80-year prison for the father, arguing that he knowingly gave his son an AR-style rifle
Give him
used
an AR-15. Yes.
exactly, despite numerous warnings about the teenager's deteriorating mental health and fascination with the previous mass murders. Judge Nicholas Prim imposed a 15-year prison sentence, stating that while Colin Gray did not carry out the killing himself, his negligence directly contributed to that tragedy. That tragedy, excuse me. The case is considered a landmark United States criminal law because it is one of the first in Georgia, and among only a handful nationwide where the parent is actually being held criminally responsible for a mass shooting committed by their child.
Right. So if I remember the case, Tom, some of the details, there were signs that this guy was becoming unstable. The
Yes,
dad bought him the weapon, for, I think
yes,
it's a birthday present.
yes.
Um, but on top of that, when the signs started showing up that he was becoming unhinged, the parents didn't do enough to keep him
Didn't
in
do
check and
anything.
to keep him away from the weapon. I think initially, I think they charged the mother and the father. So I'm
Right.
not sure how the father was the only one that was convicted. But Tom, this is why this is a case that I think is important because for a very important reason. When you sit by and allow and know that there's a potential harm or danger, and you stand by and watch it happen, um, most of the time we do have some duty in society to do something, especially with our own kids. We have responsibility over them, a duty to respond. But on top of that, Tom, this should apply to officers also. When you sit back and watch another officer break the law, victimize someone, you actually have a duty by law to respond. Most states have a duty to intervene for officers who witness other officers doing something wrong. And I'm hoping that maybe this is gain some traction, Tom, to say if it can happen to us everyday people who sit back and watch a potential crime developing for you who sit back, who have the badge, who have a responsibility to do something and don't, equally things like this should apply to you also.
And this is going to be very interesting. I want to acknowledge a couple of other folks on the chat line. We've got cousin Audrey K on the line. I want to thank her for joining us. Of course, I acknowledge Miss Tanya Hall. I want to thank her for joining us. And then cousin Councilor Patterson, we have on the line from Temple down in Southeast Texas. I want to thank her for joining us as well. Maybe she chimes in on this as well. But this is actually very interesting because, again, this is one of a small handful of cases where the parent is actually held reliable for what their child did. In this case, the father gave a gun or gifted a gun to his son who went out and killed a bunch of people. And so the courts are sending a message, no, we got to reel this back in.
Hey Tom, move in a little closer. 'Cause I think when you move in closer, the sound gets better.
Okay.
So okay, so actually, we may see more cases like this. And now that we actually got one that's settled law, you may see more of this, especially in Georgia. But uh, when it comes to weapons, people, if your children are a little unstable and unhinged, you may want to take that gift back and get them something else, a BB gun or a pellet gun or something a little less lethal. If you want to give them something they can hunt with and go shoot birds.
Well, Jimmy, I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, I understand that you are a Second Amendment guy yourself, but,
Yes, I
but,
am.
but the reality of it is, Jimmy, we live in a country that glorifies violence. We live in a country that, glamorizes a lot of what you might call unhinged behavior. And when we go back, and we haven't really discussed this, we may have to discuss it next week, but why don't we talk about this a little bit, Jimmy? Because there's another lawsuit against the major social media companies. You've got Meta, you've got YouTube, you've got Google, you've got
You got
TikTok,
alphabet, yes.
exactly, who have also been sued again because of issues with their children. The lawsuit has been filed by several families across the United States against social media companies, of course. YouTube alleged the platforms were designed in ways that harmed users, but the companies named in the lawsuit include YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. The families allege that the companies intentionally designed their platforms to maximize children's and teenagers' engagement by using features that encourage compulsive use and contribute
Right.
to social media addiction, anxiety, depression, sleep deprivation, eating disorders, self-harm, and in some cases, suicide, Jimmy. The newest lawsuit was filed by families from teenagers in Texas, North Carolina, Minnesota, and Tennessee. And Jimmy, most of these, not all of these, are conservative states. The families allege their children experienced years of worsening mental health after heavy use of the platforms before dying by suicide. So all of these families lost their children, and they're saying that these platforms are built that are creating worsening mental health behaviors that for their children unfortunately led to their demise, Jimmy. And there have been several lawsuits, thousands across the country. This is just another one, Jimmy. But to your point about mental health, part of it you put on the company, and we've had this conversation about parents' responsibility as well. But this is not going away. It is not
No,
going away.
no, it's not, Tom. And these lawsuits are starting to stack up. Um, the problem with the social media companies is that they did this by design, knowingly, because a lot of whistleblowers years ago was 10, 15 years ago was starting to leave these companies and come out and warn us that hey, this is what they're doing. They're making the service, they're making the platform more addictive. This is why, Tom, between the Alphabet and between Meta, they're the two largest employers of neurologists in the country. More than hospitals, more than psych wards, more than any place else. These two social platform companies have more neurologists working for them than anybody else. It's for a reason because they're looking for ways to make the product addictive. Just like the food companies, they all
Or
the
the old,
cigarette
or the old,
scientists.
or the old tobacco companies.
Oh, yeah, the old tobacco companies bought the food companies bought them up. or the tobacco company bought up the food companies. But now all those scientists who work on making cigarettes more addictive now work for the food companies to make food addictive. So they're doing this on purpose. I mean, it's a revenue stream for them. I understand, but it's really impacting a lot of these kids. And Tom, I always found it interesting. We've talked about this on the show before, where you pointed out that the high level execs at Google and at Alphabet don't even allow their kids to be on the internet. This is how they recognize how dangerous it is. Don't even allow their kids to have calculators. You have to do math by hand the old fashioned way because they want you to learn, understanding that they're how addicted their platforms are. That if you won't allow your kid to be on it, but you allow mine to be on it, and then you're trying to figure out ways to make it more addictive. So yes, the parents, Tom, companies are somewhat responsible, but they're just trying to make money. The biggest responsibility should fall on the parents. Do not let your kids spend hour after hour after hour on these social media platforms. Limit that to 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, and then cut it off.
Jimmy, that's going to be almost impossible in this day and age, unfortunately, because a lot of these kids are born swiping. But the reality of it is, the parents are responsible for the what their kids have in their hands, whether they're wearing earrings and they're only 2 or 3 years old, and or they have a device in their hand and they're using it all day or watching television all day. The reality of it is, Jimmy, these billion-dollar companies with trillion-dollar market caps are going to continue to make money, and what they do is they buy lobbyists to ensure that the law works for their end, works on their end because that's what they're going to do. And so, unfortunately, these addictive platforms are not going to all of a sudden be socially responsible and help anybody any more than they absolutely have to, because guess what? They are accountable to those who are these stockholders and folks who are making money off of
True.
them. And so they'll write some checks, but the reality of it is you've got to rein in your children because these companies are not going to stop making their products more addictive.
Tom, there are two things that help: a noun and a verb. The noun is that belt, and the verb is ass whooping. Put those two together, and effectively, you can affect some change in your kids. And
Jimmy,
if you don't know how to do it because it's been so long, you've been too far removed from one yourself, give me a call and I'll explain it to you.
that is a nice suggestion. Unfortunately, I don't think most of these parents are going to adopt that philosophy because they decided and it started with our generation of parents. They decided they were not going to parent their kids like we were parented.
Right. They want to be friends with their kids. That's part of the problem too, Tom. A
And
big
then,
part.
and when they get to be teenagers, they can't control them. They're doing all of this stuff that they never would have condoned or allowed to happen in their house, Jimmy. And, at the end of the day, we're getting the results, Jimmy, and it is getting exponentially worse.
Yes, it is, Tom, unfortunately. Hey, Tom, we're a little bit over time, but let's get to our sports before we close out.
All right, and we'll
So we
make
may
this
run
real
a
quick.
few minutes late.
Absolutely, Jimmy. So, for those of you who are sports fans, football fans in particular, a very interesting story I found out about recently. I saw a guy with the Chicago Bears cap on and saying, hey, Chicago, they were close, they're going to do it next year. It's like, yeah, but they may be moving to Indiana. And I was like, what? So, the Chicago Bears realistically may be leaving the state of Illinois, that being their stadium, to go to Indiana. Chicago Bears Board of Directors voted in June, a couple of months ago, to move forward with potential plans for a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana, which is very close to the border of Illinois. The proposed $5 to $6 billion dome stadium and mixed-use entertainment district was driven by Indiana lawmakers who passed a sweetheart deal and showed them the money, and it got their attention, Jimmy. The final agreements, uh, financing, permits, construction have not been completed. Illinois lawmakers are still working on a counter proposal to keep them in state in Chicago, or at least in the Chicago area. One Illinois senator recently estimated the chances are roughly 50-50 between the Bears staying in the state of Illinois versus Indiana. So Indiana may have two teams, the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. Go figure.
Yeah, that's sad, Tom. That Hammond, Indiana, because could put together a better package in their state
In
to move a
Chicago.
team than Chicago. This has to be an embarrassment for Mayor Brandon. Yes, I'm talking that same Mayor Brandon who does everything he can for illegals and do nothing for the people of Chicago. That you couldn't put together a deal to keep the Chicago Bears. I mean, who's going to leave next, Tom? The White Sox? I
Hey,
mean, come on.
ultimately, it comes down to revenue.
Yeah, it does. So, I mean, this would be a great steal for Hammond, Indiana, if they could
Oh
pull
my
this
God.
off to get the stadium and the whole
Think,
sports complex, the restaurants, and everything else that goes with it,
think
and
about the economic impact, Jimmy.
a huge impact for that little town.
Billions for local revenue and state revenue.
Yes, I mean that can make that whole city grow and prosper, which will lead to a lot of auxiliary development with influx of population, new business coming in, and that money will float around the city multiple times. So, a few $1 billion in economic activity could easily turn into 30 or $40 billion when it's all said and done
Yeah,
through the ripple effect.
we will
So,
definitely we'll definitely keep an eye on
you have
this,
to keep
Jimmy.
an eye on that one, Tom.
Yeah, and again, this is not unprecedented, Jimmy. A little bit. I don't want to say apples and oranges, but technically, the New York Giants and the New York Jets actually play in New Jersey. But
They
this,
do.
but this is kind of different. The Chicago Bears in Indiana, really
I know that doesn't. That's
don't sound right.
yeah. You can kind of understand it a little bit in New York
It don't pass the sniff test.
when
And I know
land
a
is
lot.
limited there.
I know a lot of tried. I don't know if it's black or blue, but tried and true Chicago Bears fans, man, who are probably just rolling over. A lot of folks rolling over in their grave with the fact that the Bears may actually go to Indiana.
Well, Tom, I'm going to tell you. I'm just my prediction. So it may take a few years to prove out. But if that does happen and they move to Hammond, Indiana, it won't be long before someone's going to come up with, well, since they're in our state, we should change the name also, like the Redskins with the going from the Indians to the Commanders.
But
Um,
it's still Washington.
It is still, but I guarantee you, someone's going to come with the idea that maybe we need to change the city name also. And if they're not in Chicago, Illinois anymore, maybe they should reflect Indiana where they actually are. I don't know what the state bird of or the state flower of Indiana is, um, but yeah, someone's going to want a name change to go with it eventually. They'll keep it the way it is initially to get the stadium built, get the team moved, but it won't be long time before someone's going to come up with the idea and start making an issue of it to change the name.
It's definitely going to be very interesting, of course, with football. Actually, I believe that the Hall of Fame game is this week, so technically preseason starts this week. Jimmy, with NFL football, I think the Hall of Fame game is this
And the
Thursday.
Hall of Fame game is always between the two losers of the conference championships. Is that right?
No, not in this case, Jimmy. I believe it's the. Let me see. Let me find out who is playing this week. But it is. Let me see here. The Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals are going to be playing this Thursday tomorrow at
Oh,
7 p.m. Central on NBC.
I always thought it was the conference losers who played in that Hall of Fame game. Okay.
No,
Um,
no. No,
well,
neither the Panthers or the Cardinals were anywhere close to playing. They
yeah, I
played
won't be watching that game, Tom.
a tiny
They
ball. They played a tiny ball, but no, it wasn't a Super Bowl. It was a tiny ball.
okay. Do we have any other stories left, or
That is it, Jimmy. We have got through a little bit over, but we pretty essentially got through all of our stories for the night.
yeah? So we're getting there. People to try to squeeze all this information in an hour. So I apologize that we went long on some of the legal stuff. I'll try to keep myself in check. Tommy is supposed to be watching the watch and
I
supposed to
can't,
signal me
but
when it goes long.
but,
He didn't. He wasn't quite on his job tonight.
you can't stop talking for me to get a word in.
No, you just have to signal, Tom. You don't have to say anything.
Okay.
So, so
All
we're
right.
gonna go ahead and close the show out, Tom.
I was like, all right, dude.
All
You know,
right. Yeah, there you go. The cutthroat signal will be
okay,
good. So
all right. I'll know the next time. I will know the next time. All right,
so we'll
folks.
see you
Look,
guys next week. Go ahead and close us out, Tom.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Miss Tanya, cousin Audrey K, and Councilor Patterson for joining us on the chat line. You guys have a fantastic week, and we will see you next Wednesday because it is Wednesday night.
It's certainly Black Man Speak.
Good night, everyone.